Hello Year 3, good morning, welcome back for our second week. Just want to say a really big thank you to everyone that did their online learning last week. I was really impressed with all of the work that I saw and all of your excellent efforts. So thank you very much, and thank you to all the grown-ups at home that I know that have supported with that as well. So thank you very much. This week we're going to start off by going through the challenge questions from Friday, and then we're going to move on to our lesson for today. So the first challenge that we're going to have a look at was this one here, which was which row of money is the odd one out. You can see that we've got a row of pennies, a row of 2p's and a row of 5p's. And here we've identified that the row with 5p's is odd because the total is 15p and the sum of the other rows are both 12p. Moving on to this next challenge. If 5 multiplied by 3 is equal to 15, which number sentences would find the answer to 6 multiplied by 3? So this question was getting you to consider what the possible answer was and what other calculations would give you the same answer. So the options were 5 multiplied by 3 plus 6, 5 multiplied by 3 plus 3, 15 add 3, 15 add 6, and 3 multiplied by 6. So the answer that we were after was 6 multiplied by 3. So 5 multiplied by 3 would give me 15, plus 6 would give me 21. So that isn't an option. That doesn't equate to the same answer as 18. 5 multiplied by 3, again, that gives me 15. Adding another group of 3 would give me 18. So in that case, it is correct because I'm adding an extra group of 3. It's equivalent to 6 groups of 3. 15 add group of 3 is indeed 18. So that is another answer that is correct. The next one is 15 add 6. And again, that's going to give me an answer that's too high. So it cannot be that one. And then the last one is 3 multiplied by 6. It does equal the same answer as 18 because it is obviously the commutative law with 6 multiplied by 3. So hopefully the answers that you should have there, just to double check, are 5 multiplied by 3 add 3, 15 add 3, and 3 multiplied by 6. And the reason is that the answer of the other calculations does not equal 18. This next challenge was quite an interesting one. I saw some very good explanations and some good answering of this one, so well done for this one. It's asking you to start this rhythm: clap, clap, click, clap, clap, click. Carry on the rhythm. What will you do on the 15th beat? How do you know? And what will you be doing on the 20th beat? So if we have a look at that sequence, if we break it down, the sequence is in a pattern of 3. You've got clap, clap, and then click, and then that's repeated again: clap, clap, and click. So if we're looking at that as a group of 3, to work out what the 15th beat is, we know that 15 is in our 3 times table. So if we look at what the 3rd beat is, we should straight away be able to identify that that will be the same. Therefore, the 15th beat is a click. If we're looking for the 20th beat, there's a couple of different ways that we could do this. There's a number of ways that we could answer the 15th beat as well. We could write out the rhythm all the way until we get to 20 and then work out what the 15th and the 20th beat is. I've seen other people work out the pattern of 3, and I've also seen some other people working out the multiples that are within it as well. So if we were to look at the 20th beat, 20th is in our 2 times table. So if we look at the 2nd beat, which is clap, that could be a way of working out that that is going to be a clap, because we know it's not a multiple of 3. We could also eliminate the fact that it's going to be that 3rd beat because the click wouldn't be falling on the 20th beat. So well done for your answers for that one. The next challenge was that Tommy has 4 bags with 5 sweets in each bag. Annie has 6 bags with 4 sweets in each bag, who has more sweets, and how many more sweets do they have. So the first thing you needed to do with this was to work out how many sweets each of those people had. So Tommy has got 4 bags. They've each got 5 sweets in. So if we multiply 4 by 5, we get a total of 20. So Tommy has 20 sweets. And the same with Annie. She's got 6 bags with 4 sweets in each bag. If we multiply them together, it gives us 24. So Annie has 24 sweets. Who has more sweets? Well, Annie has more sweets because she's got 24 and Tommy's only got 20. And how many more sweets do they have? We can work this out by doing a subtraction calculation. 24 take away 20 gives me 4. So that is the difference between the number of sweets that Tommy has and the number of sweets that Annie has. So let's look at this last challenge now, which again, I was really impressed with some of the answers that I saw. Lots of really good explanations with this one, well done. 5 children are playing a game. They score 4 points for every bucket they knock down. We've got the totals of those 5 children, where Mo scored 16, Eva scored 28, Tommy scored 12, Amir scored 32, and Dora scored 8. And the questions are: how many buckets did they knock down each? How many buckets did they knock down altogether? And how many more buckets did Eva knock down than Mo? So the first part of this question is getting us to work out how many they knocked down each. Now there's a couple of different ways that you could do this. You could either make the total that they've got and divide it by 4 to work out how many buckets they knocked down, or you could count in your 4s until you get to the answer in which they have scored. So for example, for Mo, 16 divided by 4 gives me an answer of 4 buckets, but I could also count in my 4s to work out how many groups of 4 that would be until I get to 16. So 4, 8, 12, 16, that's 4 groups of 4, so I could get the answer that way as well. So doing that, it leaves me with the answer that Eva has scored, knocked down 7 buckets, Tommy knocked down 3, Amir knocked down 8, and Dora knocked down 2. The next part of the question is asking me to work out how many they knocked down altogether. So here it's just a case of adding up the answers that we got from the first part. So 4, 7, 3, 8 and 2. Mr. Howe was a bit sneaky and looked for numbers that made 10. So I made 7 and 3 as one 10, 8 and 2 as another, and then added the 4, which gave me an overall total of 24. And then the last part was looking at how many more Eva scored than Mo. So remember, Eva knocked down 7, Mo knocked down 4, so the difference between those two numbers is 3. So Eva knocked down 3 more buckets than Mo. Well done for your efforts with that one. A few tricky challenges in there, but you answered them really well with some really good explanations, so well done. So there was a reason why I'd asked you to do some word problems on Friday, because today and tomorrow's lessons are going to be looking at solving word problems before we move on to doing our review later on in the week. So today's date is the 11th of January 2021, and we've got our learning objective for today's lesson, which is to solve problems. Before we move on to the in-focus task, just to explain what we're going to be looking at in this lesson, we're going to be thinking about breaking the steps that you need for a word problem in order to be able to solve it. So we're going to be looking at what the word problem is asking us, thinking about what steps we need to take, and then working out how we're going to answer that and what methods we're going to use to be able to answer that question. So our in-focus task here is a table full of sweets, and it's asking us how many sweets are there altogether and how many bags of sweets can Amira pack. There's also a question that's being asked, which is, should we multiply or divide to find the answer? So before we look at working out the answer, before I get you to think about what the answer might be and what options there could be, I want us to consider a couple of questions first. So these 3 questions I want us to think about before we start trying to answer it. what is the question asking us? Well, the question is asking us how many there are in total, and also then how many bags could be filled using the number of sweets that are on the table. So the first part, we can probably answer that a little bit easier than the second part. We can think about how many sweets there are in total. We could count them quite easily. And then the next part, it's asking us to think about how we're going to group them. So there might be some division or possibly some multiplication in there as well. The next part is how are we going to answer the question? So in terms of the total, we could add them up individually. We might write on them to say that we've counted them. We might cross them out. We could perhaps look at grouping them into groups whilst we're counting them and then count the number of groups. You might be able to come up with another way to answer that first question as to how many there are and how you could answer that question. For the second part, we need to think about what the total number is first, and once we've got that, we should then be able to think about how we might answer that second question of sharing and grouping. We might look at drawing a bar model, we might look at drawing a repeated addition, we might look at writing out a division or multiplication statement. And the last bit is there more than one possible answer? Well, that's something that we're going to be looking at throughout this lesson and thinking about how this particular question might be open to interpretation and thinking about what the possible answers could be. So what I want you to do now is at this point, I want you to pause the video for me, looking at those questions that we've got and looking at the in focus task. I want you to see if you can come up with at least 3 different answers to see if you can answer this question. There should only be one answer for the first part, but you might be able to come up with a few different ways to answer the second part. What we'll then do is we'll go through different examples and have a discussion about it. So pause the video here and see if you can answer that question for me. So we're going to look at our Let's Learn examples, and then I've got a couple of other examples to show you that you may have come up with as well as possible answers, because as was suggested in the first explanation, there might be more than one possible answer. So in terms of the first question, it was asking us how many there were in total. So hopefully you've all managed to identify that there are 24 sweets altogether. So it's in our Let's Learn, it's saying that if we put the sweets into groups of 3, we can then multiply to find the total number of sweets. So they are sort of set out in groups of 3 on the table when you were counting them. So there are 3 sweets in each group. There are 8 groups. If we multiply 3 by 8 or 8 by 3, we get a total of 24. Therefore, there are 24 sweets altogether. So now that we've got that total, now that we've worked out how many there are altogether, we should then be able to start considering how we're going to group them into bags. So here they've been divided into 3. So each bag has 3 sweets. Divide to find the number of bags of sweets. So here, if we've got 24 sweets altogether, that's our dividend. And if we are dividing by 3, that's our divisor. So 24 divided by 3 equals 8. So there should be 8 bags in total. If we have a look, we can double check, and indeed there are 8 bags with 3 sweets in. So we can use that inverse operation of multiplication to check our division calculation. So it says that Amir can pack 8 bags of sweets. Now this is correct. There's no issue with this being a correct answer. But I wonder if that's the answer that you came up with. I wonder whether there were any other possible answers that might exist. So here I've come up with some alternative ways that could have been multiplied together. We could have had that there were 1 group of 24. We might have counted in groups of 2, or we might have counted that there were 2 groups of 12. We might have counted that there were 3 groups of 8. We might have grouped them into 8s instead. Or we might have grouped them into groups of 6. We might have merged and joined 2 groups of 3 together to make a bigger group of 6. And therefore there would have been 4 rather than 8 groups of 3. There would have been 4 groups of 6. Now all of these still equal 24. we've still got our total as the same number. But what we're now going to look at is thinking about how we could have shared them, maybe not into 8 bags or into groups of 3, but if there were any other options. So one of the answers I came up with was that you could have put them all in one bag, and you could have had 24 sweets divided by one bag equals 24. So you would have had one bag with 24 sweets in. The other option was that you could have divided them into 2 bags, so you would have had 12 in each. You could have divided them into 3 bags and had 8 in each, or you could have divided them into 4 and had 6 in each. Now there are obviously some other possible answers here. I haven't looked at all of them, but you could have also split them into 6 and had 4 sweets in each. You could have actually split them into 12 bags and had 2 in each. So there's a lot of different options that you could have had with this one calculation. So I'm hopeful that when I look at your work, I'll be able to see all those different ways that you've come up with as well. But the main point of this was looking at what the question was asking us and thinking about the steps that we needed to do in order to be able to answer that question. And when we're doing word problems, we need to be really careful with looking at the question carefully. Sometimes I find that underlining some of the information that I need is really useful in being able to work out what it is that I'm going to do, and also looking at the different methods that I could use in order to be able to solve that problem. So we're going to have a look at our guided practice questions now, and hopefully that will be able to help us with our questions that we go in our workbook afterwards. So here's one example. We've got there are 4 children. They share 24 slices of pizza equally. How many slices of pizza does each child get? So think about the total number of children. Think about how many slices there are. What method are we going to use to be able to answer that question? Are we going to multiply or divide? Now, you don't need to write this down. I just want you to see if you can think of a method to answer this. And I'm going to show you the answer in a moment once you've paused the video and had a quick think. So hopefully you came up with the answer of, if there are 24 slices altogether, if we divide that by the 4 children, that gives them 6 slices of pizza each. So we're going to have a look at this problem together, and we're going to answer it together as well. There are 3 postcards in one packet. How many postcards are there in 8 identical packets? So here the question's asking me how many there are in 8 identical packets. So the answer is going to involve something to do with a multiple of 8. If I'm looking at the fact that in one packet I've got 3 postcards, then my thoughts are that I'm going to need to multiply by 3 to get the answer. Now I'm just going to have a double check of that before I answer it to have a look. So there are 3 postcards in one packet. So one packet has got 3. So this represents my number that are in each packet. And here, how many postcards are there in 8 identical packets? This is the number of packets that there are. So I've got my number of packets as 8, and I've got my number of postcards as 3. So if I do 8 multiplied by 3, that gives me an answer of 24. So I believe that the answer is 24, because the question is asking me how many postcards are there in total in 8 identical packets. So the answer is 24. Hopefully you managed to get the same answer. Maybe you saw it a lot quicker than I did and you worked it out straight away. If you did, well done. If not, hopefully my explanation might have helped you. So we'll have a look at the next question, and again we're going to answer that one together. Next one. Charles has to arrange 32 chairs in rows. Each row has 8 chairs. How many rows are there? Right, okay, so with this one, I've got a total of 32 chairs, and I'm going to write that down straight away because I feel as if I might need that first. So 32 chairs, and there needs to be 8 chairs in each row. And I'm looking at this question, it's asking me how many rows there are. So I'm thinking that with this one, I'm tempted to divide. I don't know why at the moment, but we'll have a look at that in a second. I'm going to divide by 8. Right, let's have a look at this. Charles has to arrange 32 chairs in rows. So he's got 32 chairs, he's putting them out into rows. So this total number of chairs, each row has 8 chairs. So if we're dividing by 8, then that's going to show me how many are in each row. And then I need to work out how many rows. Yeah, I'm happy with this. So 32 divided by 8. Right, I've forgotten my 8 times table. Right, so what I'm going to do, I think I might count in my 8s so that will help me answer the question. So 8, 16, 24, 32. Right, so 4. So that gave me 4. So I'm going to write my answer down as 4. Right, I'm not happy with that. I'm going to check my answer. 4 multiplied by 8. I wasn't happy with counting in my 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count in my 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 8. Right, fab. So what I've done is I've used that inverse operation to check my answer, and I'm happy that that's the right answer. So I think that there are going to be 4 rows altogether. Hopefully you agree with me. If you don't, write it down and show me and tell me if I have got it wrong. Last guided practice question then. Sam has 8 sheets of paper. He cuts each sheet into 12 rectangles. How many rectangles does Sam get altogether? Okay, so this is thinking about the fact that there are 8 sheets of paper. If he cuts each sheet into 4 rectangles, we're looking at how many rectangles does Sam get altogether. So each sheet of paper is cut into 4 rectangles. Doesn't say that they're equal size, although they probably should be. So let's have a think. So if that's one piece of paper gives me 4. So but there's 8 sheets of paper, aren't there? So I think it's going to be a multiplication, isn't it? So if we've got, this is just one sheet of paper, but there's 8 of them. But this one sheet has been multiplied into 4. So if I multiply this by 4, I think that's going to give me the answer. And as luck would have it, I think that's the same multiplication that we just did a minute ago. So I'm thinking the answer is 32. Let me double check my answer. So Sam has 8 sheets of paper. He cuts each sheet into 4 rectangles. So each sheet is going to have 4 rectangles. So one sheet would be 4, 2 sheets would be 8, 3 sheets would be 12, 4 sheets would be 16, 5 sheets would be 20. Yeah, that's definitely, we're on the right track here. 6 would be 24, 7 would be 28, and 8 would be 32. Fab. So I'm happy with my answer of 32 there. So again, with these word problems, it's a really important case of making sure that you're reading the question carefully, and it's taken me a little bit of time to think these through and work out exactly what it is it's asking me to do. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to do the same with your workbook questions. So well done for getting through this part of the lesson. I'm aware that I'm looking at my timer now and it's a little bit longer than I thought it would be, so thank you for bearing with me if you're still with me. And we're going to look at our workbook tasks. Your worksheet 13 tasks are attached to this question and assignment, so you should be able to answer the questions that you've got. They will also be available on the website if you're having difficulty accessing them on Teams. And once you've done those worksheet questions, you will then have a challenge, which we're going to go through the challenge shortly. One last thing I would say is please read the questions carefully. As you've just seen, we've been going through the guided practice questions together. It's really important to understand what the question is asking you. So the challenge that you've got for today is the square number grid below, and I'm going to read this out to you, but I'm not going to give you any clues at all, which you might be thankful for, because you might be thinking that you are exhausted by listening to my voice. But I'm going to read through what you need to do, and then I'm going to leave it at that because I want to know what your answers are. So what do you need to find a number chosen from this 100 square? Well, there are 4 clues below that are true but do nothing to help in finding the number. 4 of the clues are necessary for finding it. So here are the 8 clues to use. First one, the number is greater than 9. The second one, the number is not a multiple of 10. The number is a multiple of 7. The number is odd. The number is not a multiple of 11. The number is less than 200. Its ones digit is larger than its tens digit. And lastly, its tens digit is odd. What is the number? And it is possible, because I do have an answer, and I will share that with you tomorrow. Thank you very much for listening to this maths lesson today. I look forward to seeing all of your completed work throughout the day. As always, if you have any problems accessing any of your work, please ask your grown-up to get in contact with the school and I will help out. Thank you very much.